Nobody's on yet. Hold on. Hi. I don't think anybody's on.
That's all right. Let's
We'll
do
wait
it.
like a minute. We can edit the minute out later.
Yeah, Michigan time, right?
So Michigan time is so real. And the thing is, I
Michigan
thought
slash
Michigan
CP.
time was just, we have one viewer. Hi.
Hey.
We had, okay, 2 viewers. Hey.
Good. Awesome.
So okay. Three viewers. Hi. Okay. I think we can start. It's fine. We got 3 viewers. So
Absolutely.
hi. I'm Maisha Williamson, founder of Young Professionals for Christ, and I want to introduce James Logan. So hey.
How's it going, everyone? Great
Okay.
to be here. Thanks, Maisha.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And I just wanted to give a little background why I invited him. We got 4 viewers. Okay. A background why I invited him today. Basically, if you are not familiar with Young Professionals for Christ, and you don't have to be a Christian to be on this live channel. This is for everyone. I'm sharing it for everyone.
Right,
but why I invited him is because, like, in our prayer groups and our Bible studies, people were like, hey, I'm praying for a new job. I'm praying for increase. I'm praying for a new job in the new year. And I'm like, okay, sometimes we need to stop praying for stuff and we need actually techniques. Like, prayer is not going to work all the time. So we need real life techniques on how we're going to get a new job, how we're going to network, things like that. So I wanted to bring James, a professional, in to talk about this. So James, go away. Take it away from me.
Sure. Yeah, so thanks, Maisha. Thanks to Young Professionals for Christ for having me. I really appreciate it. It's exciting to be here. This is my first time doing a webcast, so this is something that's been on my plate and on my to-do list for a long time. So thanks for giving me the opportunity. So a little bit about me. I'm from Detroit originally. I went to public schools all my entire life. I graduated from Mumford High School. When I was a young kid, all I wanted to do was play football. I was very unapologetic about being a young black male from a single parent household from Detroit who wanted to play football. And partly because I wanted to be the best, and that was always kind of in me. And I wanted to play for Michigan because I wanted to be the best and play among the best and be coached by the best. And so because of that, I did really well in high school, got an academic scholarship, walked on to Michigan, and actually quit after my sophomore year. But before that, I won actually the last Big Ten championship. And that's a lot of why I call my company Higher Level Coaching, is from some of the things and lessons, lifelong lessons that I learned from football that I think applies to any area in life. I like to be a coach because I've always helped people and tried to help people and assist people and help invoke things that were in them, and not necessarily show them away, but always just pull out things that were in them. But anyway, graduated from Michigan in 2008. It was a great time to graduate. 2008 was like the middle of the economic recession. So I was applying for.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, right, right. I was applying. When I graduated, I was an intern for the admissions office, and I was applying for a bunch of jobs in 2009 that summer. And I like to say I messed around and found my dream job. And so after in 2009, I started as an international recruitment coordinator for the University of Michigan Flint, and I got the opportunity to travel to over 30 countries in about 3 years. I mean, I traveled to for some years I was out the country for 3 or 4 months at a time, 2 months at a time. I want to increase my skills and increase my capacity to earn. So I was looking for a new job. At the time, I had kids, and I wanted them to know me, and I wanted to know them because I was traveling so much. I missed out on milestone events in their lives. So after that, I got my second dream job, and I'm defining my dream job as something you'll do for free. I got my second dream job at the business school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor as a program coordinator. And basically, I helped run a program for about 300 high school students in the city of Detroit and helped to prepare and expose them for business education and careers through a year-long program. So after 2 years from doing that, I felt like I could be more effective outside the university. I took a big risk. I'm a big risk taker. I like to think that, you know, that's one way you kind of win big. And so I took out my 401k and a little bit of money I saved up from my 8 years, you know, career at the university, and started and run my own company, Higher Level Coaching, full time. I started Higher Level when I was an international recruiter. When people would see me at the Great Wall or Mount Corcovado in Brazil or the Dead Sea or Taj Mahal, and they would say, "Hey, James, how do you do that at such a young age, fresh out of college, in the middle of the economic recession? I want to do something I love." And I realized that at that moment, it wasn't that I was special or I graduated, you know, it wasn't because I graduated from Michigan or anything like that. It was because I could communicate effectively. And that's why I'm here today. I like to help people communicate more effectively on paper. So I write resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, and any, you know, written communication. And I like to help people communicate more effectively in person. So that includes networking and interviewing. So I'm a career coach, and I basically help individuals and groups communicate more effectively, essentially. So I'm here to help with job search strategy, because throughout your job search, you're communicating, you know, what kind of person you are and your character. So, that's a little bit about me, and hopefully I can uncover a little bit more throughout this next hour or so, as I, you know, try to help you with job search strategies and really empower young professionals, especially young Christians, to get beyond, you know, the praying and hoping, but actually being able to do and have the power that's instilled in us. And have some agency, right? And be able to do what we want to do, go where we want to go, and earn what we want to earn. So.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Thank you, James. I just want to pause really quick. We have like 12
Sure.
viewers.
Awesome.
So if we can say in the chat where we're from, we can introduce ourselves, say who we're from, so I can just know like where we're from on the chat. And you can put in your most burning question you want to ask James. So I'm going to ask him some questions to kind of guide the conversation, but also want to just stop and see. There's like a 30-second delay,
sure,
with the chat.
Right,
so I'm going to wait a second to make sure that people see the chat. Hey guys, and if you don't know me, I am from Chicago, Illinois, Chi-Town, South Side. I moved to the Detroit area. So what up though? Don't say D-Town. I see like new people, they say D-Town. Like, don't do that. That's
Dallas.
What up though? And yeah, I'm really enjoying myself, really able to make an impact here. Young Professionals for Christ. I zoom back and forth between Chicago and Detroit doing meetups. So we do monthly meetups. We're having our meetup in Detroit next month, this month, and we're having one in Chicago this month too. So just waiting. Don't be scared to say anything in the chat, guys. I see you there.
I could talk. I could keep on talking now.
Okay. So while we're waiting for anyone to ask a question, right. I have a question. Sure. So I'm just going to ask for me. Say, okay, it's around the holiday season. A lot of people feel uncomfortable applying for jobs around the holiday season. Is this a good time or not, and why?
Yeah, it's a great time. And the reason why is because it takes a little bit of time to get a job, right? Mm-hmm. For every $10,000 you want to make, it generally takes about a month to land that job. So if you want to make $30,000, it might take 3 months. If you want to make $60,000, it could take 6 years. 100,000 plus could take a year. So the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to be able to start a new position. And a lot of companies, their fiscal year starts in January 1st, right? So that's when budgets start over. That's when allocated funding for new positions is there. And also a lot of companies and organizations have downtime during the holiday season because they might have the Christmas break off, they might have vacation, and they're renewed and invigorated to really like get some new blood in. So after the new year is a great start for individuals, right? Because it's new year, new me kind of thing, but it's also a great start for companies because it's a new fiscal year, the beginning of the year, they have new goals for every year. So it's a great time to start applying. And it's also a great time because you might be home, you might be interacting with family members who might know executives, and employee referrals is the #1 way to get a job. So at those holiday parties, make sure you're networking, make sure you're communicating with people and letting them know your goals, because that next year, that January, a month later, basically will be time that companies and organizations are starting to, you know, ramp up and hire. So this is a perfect time, really the best time. And also, a lot of people might not feel like it's a great time. So if you know that it's a good time, then you're more competitive because now it's a smaller pool. So I think that's a great time. It's a great time. Great question.
We have a question from the audience. Hi, Justin from Flint, Michigan.
All right, Flintstone. Yeah, I worked at Flint for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just wanted to know if you could touch on making the most of social networks like LinkedIn. What are some common mistakes you come across, and how should people use maybe LinkedIn or Facebook to find a job?
Great question. I don't think they should necessarily use Facebook to find a job, because Facebook, although it has a billion people, is more like hanging out at the park or a party, and no one's really thinking about careers. More people are thinking about strictly the social, friends, family aspect of sharing their lives. It's a great place to come across a contact that might work at a company that you can, connect with, or might want to, look at a certain position for. But LinkedIn is really the premier job search networking tool, because people are there typically strictly for the purpose of finding employees, or job seekers are there to find employers. So it's a natural place to connect with employees and and recruiters and hiring managers. The way you maximize LinkedIn is to understand that it's a living, breathing profile. You need to look at it like it's almost you online. It needs to be updated frequently as you change jobs or graduate or do new things, you get a new award. You need to update that profile to stay in the minds of your audience. You also need to have LinkedIn for a purpose. You don't want to just have a LinkedIn profile because everybody else is there. You want to have it to connect with professionals, connect with people who might have the opportunity to give you an employee referral, which is the #1 way to get a job. LinkedIn is actually the second best way to get a job in 2017. Why? Because it could connect you to employees, right? When people look at your LinkedIn profile, I like to think that they're inviting you into their home or office or coffee shop and having a conversation with you. What are you saying? First of all, what does your picture look like? Do you look like you're a consummate professional? Do you look like you care about your picture? Do you look like you took time to devote to take a good looking headshot? It should be professional. It should not be a selfie. It should not be, so distant and far away where I can't see your face, where it looks like you might be, bragging about your outfit. But first things first is the first impression is how you look. People are judging you, yes. So you need to look like you take care and take pride in your appearance. The second thing that I think people miss out on is your title or your tagline, your headline. It's a very short blurb about, basically about who you are. And usually people have the defaulted headline or tagline, which is their current position and the company they work for. And that's rather boring, because you're putting yourself in the box, and you're more encompassing than that, right? It could talk a little bit more about where you want to go. So it could say something like, technology professional seeking new opportunities in the automotive industry, right? As opposed to, engineer at Ford, you might say, hey, I'm seeking these opportunities. Now your audience can look at your profile and they're almost invited to talk to you, to stay a while. The last thing I'll say about LinkedIn is the profile. Your summary. You should maximize your summary. Some people might have a couple of words or not have a summary. And your summary is your opportunity to converse with your audience. So what do you have to say about you? It should be in the first person, and it should be professional, yet personable. So it should answer a few questions like your long-term career goals, your biggest accomplishment, what are your strengths? And then in short, it should articulate the value you can add to an organization, whether it's employers or a volunteer organization. That's a few ways you can maximize LinkedIn to get a job and put yourself out there to be more appealing and available to professionals.
Okay, one bonus question about the LinkedIn. Someone asked, is it worth it to buy LinkedIn Premium?
It depends. If you are having a tough time with the regular LinkedIn and you're not seeing success, and you would like to see who views your profile more, it might be important. I would like to say that if you're being aggressive in your job search, you might as well pay a couple of $30 a month, or however much it is a month, to really maximize LinkedIn. But if you're just going to buy it and keep it on the shelf and do LinkedIn just the way you've been working it, then no, it's not effective. You can always cancel LinkedIn after you've got that job, or after you made enough connections where your LinkedIn profile is showing at the top of the jobs, at the top of the search results, when they might type in your company or position or somebody that might have the same skill set as you. So yes and no, it's worth it in certain situations. If you know how to utilize it and you plan on utilizing and ramping up your efforts, buy it. But if not, you're probably more passive in your job search, so it may not be worth it. It may be a waste if you don't use it the right way.
So what if we're trying to make and we know we can, but we haven't, say we're trying to make like a $30,000 jump in our income, and we know we have the skill set, but we're $30,000 lower pay right now. Like, how do we finesse that? How do we answer the question, what did you make at your last job?
Right.
Things like that. So how do we make a jump like that?
Great question. So a couple of things. So I was up, let me give you a personal example. When I was at the University of Michigan, I was at the business school. I was a program coordinator. And I'm pretty open with my salary because I'm a coach and I need to help other people. I was making $45,000 a year, and I was up for a position in the athletic department for associate athletic director for career preparation. So I would have been responsible for helping the athletes prepare for their careers, similar to what I do with higher level. That position, it didn't have a salary expectation, but I knew associate director at least started at 60, 65. I was making 45, and I also knew athletics was very demanding. I was going to be working with people I knew. So they asked my salary expectations in that meeting, and they said, how much money do you expect to make in this role? And I said $75,000 with a straight face. Okay. With a straight face. You can't be shy about it. You have to know your worth and know your value. And they said, wait a minute, your salary is public at the university. They said, wait a minute, that's a $30,000 jump in your current salary. I said, and what you currently do? I said, what I currently do does not have anything to do with what I'm going to be doing for this role. If you cannot come up, essentially, as I said, if you cannot meet me close to that number, we need to part ways amicably, right? Because to me, I didn't want to waste their time, and I didn't want them to waste my time thinking that I was going to be going through these interview processes that could last months long. So I helped a few people make that kind of jump. One is an engineer, actually graduated from Michigan, but some part of making that kind of jump is understanding your worth, understanding what the market is willing and able to pay you, right? So if you're in a job where your skills are low and everybody has your kind of skill set, then you might not be in a position to make that kind of salary demand or expectation. One other way to make that kind of jump is to be in a leadership role, a supervisory role, because if you're just doing coordinator work and you don't have any direct reports, one way to make that kind of jump is, if you're making 40, 50,000, your supervisor is probably making about $25,000 more than you. So since you've been in that position for a period of time and you have those skill set and you're able to produce results, then you can, you're warranted to apply for those positions. The last thing I want to make people understand is the only reason that someone's willing to pay you anything, a salary, whether it's 20,000, 30,000, 120,000, is because you're able to add that kind of value to their organization. So if you ask for a $30,000 jump in your salary, you better be able to articulate the kind of value you can add to that organization. And what I mean by value is how much money can you make them? How much money can you save them? How much time can you save them? That's very valuable to an organization. So for example, in my first role, the strategic plan that I helped write, co-create, warranted us $400,000, a $400,000 grant over 3 years to help with our international recruitment efforts. Well, from that $100,000, we increased the international population by over 150%. A couple of reports showed that we brought $5 million to the local Flint area and over $500,000 a year to the university. And I was the only international recruiter. I was doing 90% of the travel. So I asked for a $5,000 or $10,000 raise, and I didn't get it. So I knew that it was time to go, right? I knew that the best way to move up is to move out. So for me to get the money that I wanted and for me to get the money that I desired, it probably wasn't going to come from the same organization because I was doing that kind of work at this salary already. And they felt like that I didn't deserve or wasn't warranted that kind of money. They thought that I could get it after I left. But when I left, they split the position in two. So now you're paying $100,000 for two positions when I was doing that same job in one role. So one way to articulate, how much money you deserve is to showcase how much money you brought into this organization, how much money you saved the organization, how much time you saved the organization. Those things are priceless to organizations. So if you can articulate that and make a numbers case, that's the best way to get a much higher salary. 30,000 is an arbitrary number, but you can definitely do that if you make a case for how I can save the organization more money than anything you could possibly pay me, right? You muted. I can't hear you.
I muted. Okay. So I just was summarizing. So use numbers on how much money you can save the organization, how much, I'm just taking, how much
that's fine.
have brought into the org. Just know how to communicate your value. Know how to communicate your value.
How to quantify your value. Because if you're asking for a number, dollar number, you want to showcase how you can help the organization make that. Because if you can't pull it out of the thin air, they can't pull 30,000 out of thin air if you're looking for that same organization. If you're looking for a new organization, then it's just a matter of negotiating that salary and understanding your skill set, your experience, and your worth, essentially, and how much the market will pay for it.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
That's a good question, though.
It is a good question. We got a lot of people on here too, so just want to see if anybody has any questions. Else I can ask questions all day. Okay. When changing organizations, how do you go about securing references, especially when all your experience came from a single organization that you currently work at?
That's good. Good question. So the best way to secure references is to ask, right? But of course, some people might not feel like they feel comfortable in asking certain people. And that's when you try, hopefully somebody's, you're not in a position right now where you need references, you don't have relationships. But the best way to get the best references is to really come in the company, come in a role, and build relationships. Hopefully you can build relationships with superiors and your higher ups, but you also need to build relationships across, so your peers, because some references will say, hey, give us a coworker or someone that worked with you and tell me how you interacted with them. So one is, really to build relationships beforehand, because I like to say, if you build relationships and make friends, you're able to ask those friends of anything, right? I mean, I can ask my friends right now of absolutely anything, and I believe because they are friends with me and they have that relationship, I'll be able to get that. But although your experience might be the same from the same organization, that's okay, because different people who interacted with you in different ways can speak on different parts or different abilities that you might have. So, for example, your supervisor might see you, work on a project from beginning to end, while one of your coworkers might work with you on a piece of that project and saw you in a certain situation or doing a certain thing. Someone who might be in marketing, if you're in marketing, for example, and you work with the design team, well, someone from that design team will have a very different perspective than someone from the marketing team. So although you work in the same organization, most organizations are big enough and operate in different kind of capacities that you should try to diversify as much as possible the kind of person and the role that they have in their writing your references. And eventually you'll do different things and more things as your career evolves, where you can have references from other people. So you might be involved in organizations or a nonprofit, or you might be on some kind of leadership team or another. And that's one way you can diversify. Usually you don't have to just think about your paid experience to get references, but even unpaid experiences will, those opportunities will provide good references as well.
Okay, so great. Okay, follow-up question. More questions. So follow-up question first was, is it okay to let supervisors or peers know that you are leaving?
In certain circumstances, yes. I like to say that, for one, you should always give a good 2 weeks notice, because that's just proper etiquette. Even if you know that they may not like it.
Before you.
No. I think that, no, you should not. It's really not under any circumstances that you should let your coworkers or supervisors know that you're leaving or you plan to leave before you put in your 2 weeks notice. It's not a good thing, and simply because it could backfire. They could retaliate, although it's against the law. They could retaliate. They could not consider you for promotions because they believe that the next opportunity that comes along you may take, and you're going to be out of the door anyway. And it could also, give the impression that you're ungrateful for the opportunity they gave you, for the position you're in, for the, for what, projects you might be working on. Now, if it's a dead end job, and you're working at, I don't want to say any kind of job, but if you're working at a job where you're not passionate about, where, it's kind of a revolving door, it may be good to let them know, hey, I'm probably going to be leaving soon, so you probably need to hire somebody just to fill my spot. But for the most part, you know, it's business. Don't take it personal, and you can, you know, your employer shouldn't take it personal, because you better believe that if they had to fire you or lay you off, they probably wouldn't give you an advance notice unless you have a very positive and personal relationship with someone at your job. Now, if that's the case and they're a mentor and they can give you a recommendation, or they can give you some kind of referral for another company, yeah, that may be a situation that you have to have if you really trust this person. But for the most part, it's probably going to get out, and it could probably backfire.
Okay. We have another good question, and this is a question I wanted to ask, and I probably do it. I don't know if I do it right. It said, during an interview, how do you let an employer know you can perform a job even though you don't have the specific skill sets they mentioned in the job description, but you're confident that you can learn? Good. So with coding, I feel like this comes a lot. They'll be like, 10 languages you should know. And I'm like, yeah, I only know like 4 of them, but I'm pretty sure I can learn them if you hire me. So how would you communicate?
Good question. So I like to help people communicate effectively, and understand that effective communication essentially has 4 components. It's clear, it's direct, it's genuine, and it's also persuasive. So really your job is to persuade them that you can do the job. Throughout the interview, that's your job, is to be clear, direct, genuine, and that means being yourself, being your best self, and, you know, letting your personality shine through. But being persuasive is trying to convince them to see things your way. One way to talk about things that you don't have direct experience with is to talk about transferable skills. So listen, because I've done X, that means I can do Y. You're looking for somebody that's a team player, you're looking for somebody that's a hard worker. When someone asks in an interview, what are your greatest strengths? One of the greatest responses is the ability to learn new skills quickly, right? My ability to problem solve and learn new skills quickly. If you can learn new skills quickly, what can't you do, right? If you can learn a new language in a couple of months by looking at Duolingo, what can't you do? But you want to articulate how you've learned new skills quickly in the past to showcase and demonstrate to them, and, you know, prove and persuade to them that you can learn this new skill quickly. So for example, coding, you know, a language is a language. If I know French, I probably know Spanish. They're Romance languages, right? Or I can learn Portuguese because it's so similar. You know, if I can ride a bicycle, I might be able to ride a tricycle, or a unicycle, right? So the idea is to convince them that, hey, because although I haven't done this thing in the past directly, I have the skill set and the ability to transfer those skills, and trust me, I can do it because I've done it before, right? And I'm sure I can do it again. So your job is to say, hey, take a chance on me. This is obviously taking a chance on me, but I have the things that you cannot teach. I have the intangibles. I work really hard. I stay up all night to figure things out. I'm a problem solver. I approach things analytically. I take my emotions out of it. I take a step back and sleep on it. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can persuade someone that you can do things that you haven't done. And you might see people in positions and like, how did you get this position? Well, they were able to convince and persuade and be clear about how they can do those things. So that's just one idea in an interview. In an interview scenario is, you know, you really want to convince someone that you can't do it because of the similar things that you've done in the past. One day, you know, one interview, I told, you know, my employer, I said, look, I just get things done. I really don't know how to explain it, but I just get things done. You give me a task, I finish it, right? When people, you know, when I talk, people listen. So talking about my leadership skills, and they were like, you know what, that sounds good to me, right? So there's ways and tricks and techniques you can use, but at the end of the day, it's all about persuasion. And in interviews, one person is being bought, one person is being sold.
I just want to give a shout out to James's writing skills and his ability to communicate things on resumes. My testimony for him, like, honestly, I had been looking for a job for a long time, and I was like, okay, something has to change. This is different. And when I used his resume that he redid for me in my cover letter, like, I got callbacks immediately, and I got 2 job offers off of that, the first resume you did, and I got 2 callbacks immediately from the one you just did. So
nice. That's awesome.
Right,
that's awesome.
And I wasn't hearing anything back from anybody. So
right. I see why, honestly. I don't like to say that, but it's right. I like to say, if you're applying to jobs and you're not getting callbacks, something's wrong with your resume.
Right.
If you're getting callbacks and you're going to interviews and you're not getting the job offer, you need to improve your interview skills, right? And that's pretty much it.
Right.
You know, though, to me, you see what you need to work on based on how the market responds to you, right? So, so yeah, thanks for that compliment, the kind words.
Okay, and we have a question. So, how do you prepare yourself for a job in a different industry? I'm trying to she's trying to transition to nonprofit management, but generally, if you want to transfer to a different.
They used to say you have to be an expert, you need to work 10,000 hours at something. So if you work 10,000 hours, that's basically, if you did it half time or part time, that's about 20 years at 20 hours a week for 50 hours a week. If you did it full time, it's about 10 years. So nowadays, though, I mean, information is so fast and rapid that it doesn't take that long to become an expert or a minimally functioning expert on any one topic. The first thing I would say is to read books. They say if you read 10 books on one subject, you're an expert. Like, imagine, like, how long would it take you to read 10 books? But it's also about interpreting that information and analyzing that information and seeing how it applies to your situation. So first things first is doing your research and doing your homework. Before I did anything with higher level coaching, I read. I learned from different sources. Then when I start to read so much and start to notice discrepancies or problems with what I was reading, I said, I know enough to start writing some of these articles that I'm reading. And one of the articles I rebutted, an article from Insider or business.com or something that said something about a 2-page resume. But a couple of weeks prior, they said that you should only have a 1-page resume. So I rebutted the article, and that's the point where I started writing about the topics that I was reading about, and I started using that information to help other people. And real life experience really is the best teacher. So now that I've helped over 500 individuals and professionals like Maisha through my individual services, things start recurring, right? I start seeing things over and over, and you develop muscle. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did 200 push-ups at one time, because, they probably do 50 or 100 before breakfast, right? So you develop the muscle that you need to prepare for a job in a different industry. But again, I like to say the easiest way to do that is to work in the ecosystem of what you're already doing. So for example, Maisha worked in, technology, and maybe she worked in software. Well, now it's, user design or user interface or artificial intelligence. Like, it's not necessarily software, but it might be in the same ecosystem. So that skill set is still there. That's one way, but really the research, talking to other professionals, becoming a part of conferences, like going to conferences, learning, like TED Talks, being a part of meetups. Like, I love the fact that you have a meetup, because there's a lot of meetups for certain professions and industries that you can take part in, and now learn a lot more through people in the industry, in the profession. And eventually you start talking about it, writing about it more. And eventually I think that after those, 10 books and professions and conferences, and hopefully getting a job in that industry, a lower level job where you're not doing a ton, but you're more so assisting as opposed to directing, then you're going to learn through experience and actually learn through actual job roles. So I think that's one, the kind of the short answer to how you prepare for a job in a different industry.
Yeah, I just want to share my story. So, if people who don't know my background, I'm originally mechanical engineering background, process improvement, manufacturing, things like that. And James talked about, I finished school, came out of school 2008, middle reception. So car industry, that wasn't like super amazing.
Right. That's what the bankruptcies, right?
So, I mean, I had some jobs here and there, but like the car industry just like completely changed. Mechanical engineering, honestly, the growth rate is just not the same there, or the car industry is not, the growth rate is not the same as it used to be. So I wanted to get into technology. I started talking to people who were in technology. I started asking friends who were specifically programming, to be a programmer. I started talking to friends who are programmers, going to programming meetups, like he said. Like, those are great. Like, honestly, your network is worth more than your knowledge. You need to be skilled, but like, if you're skilled and have no network, I realize that doesn't matter. YouTube videos, like, you would be surprised on what their YouTube videos on. Someone said they want to transition to nonprofit management. I bet you there's YouTube videos on nonprofit management, and those YouTube videos will give you books. So I read like the top books in JavaScript, the top books in coding. There are Facebook groups for every career you want to be in. So I started joining like coding Facebook groups and doing things like that. So those are some of the things I did to transition from mechanical engineering to being a computer programmer. And I feel like those things would transfer in like a lot of different areas. So
Absolutely.
Let me see. What's the next question? So we talked a lot about like even before we get the interview. So now we have the interview. What do we need to do? Hey, I want you to come in for an interview Tuesday at 10. What's our process here?
Sure. If it's Monday, tell them that you need a little bit more time first, right? A lot of companies might do that and like be urgent and try to get you as soon as possible to come in for an interview. And I like to say, try to buy yourself more time so you can prepare adequately. A lot of people are nervous about interviews because they're not prepared properly. I like to say when you prepare for an interview, you primarily look at a couple of things: the organization, the industry, the role, right? And also you need to know about yourself. So if you're knowledgeable about those two things, the interview is going to be a piece of cake. I like to help people prepare for interviews by going through what I call the interview trifecta, and that's the beginning or pre-interview, during the interview, and post-interview. So pre-interview, you want to know about the organization. Look up every page and read every page on their website, honestly, right? You need a little bit of time. The reason why you do that is so you can learn the language, be familiar with the lingo and the company jargon, what they call things, the different, things they're working on. There might be something that you might jog your memory while you're in the interview and they show that you did your homework. So read every page on the company's website. You also want to read current events in the industry. So click on Google and go in news or current events, recent events, customer reviews. If they have any customer reviews for the company you're working for, employee reviews. Have you talked to anybody that might have worked there before? Try to find mutual connections that work for that company on LinkedIn, because now you can say, hey, I'm interviewing for this company. What do you know about it? Do you know questions that they're going to ask? Right? Like, that's okay. Right? Do you know the person that I'll be interviewing with? If you know the person you'll be interviewing with, make sure you look them up on LinkedIn. Try to find out a little bit about them. It's okay to show them that you researched them. That shows, again, that you're doing your homework. When you begin the interview process, you're actually starting the interview. Like, the company can see if you did your homework. They might be able to see if you looked at their profile on LinkedIn or tried to communicate with some of their employees. I mean, that's a good thing because it shows that you care and take the time and energy and attention needed to do a good job. So another thing is, of course, reading about news and current events, and then knowing about yourself is answering the top 10, top 20 interview questions. Be prepared for what questions they might ask in the interview. So by looking at the job description, you're going to see what's important to them. If the first thing they say is that this person will coordinate the funds that we receive from donors, that's one thing that you're probably going to get a question about. They're probably going to ask, hey, tell me about your experience in coordinating, organizing, or allotting funds from donors. And you're going to have to answer that question. Well, in my first role doing X, Y, and Z, I did a great job doing that by doing X, Y, and Z, by doing A, B, and C. So anticipating the questions they're going to ask, understanding the top general questions that they're going to ask, like, tell me about yourself. What are your greatest strengths? Tell me your things that you need to improve on. Why are you looking for new roles right now? Why are you interested in our company? It shouldn't be the first time you ever heard that question. And if you're unprepared in answering it, it shows that you're not prepared for the interview. Those are public and available questions. So really preparing for the industry, organization, company, and role, and also preparing for yourself and knowing what you can bring by answering those top interview questions.
Okay, so I wanted to interject another question based on what we were saying before we got on the call.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said,
oh yeah, good, yeah.
we kept in our Bible studies and our prayer calls praying about another job and asking God to bless us with another job. And I wanted you to share what you said about asking for something and not working for it.
Mm-hmm. So I was reading the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, and a couple of things stood out to me. First of all, my name's James, so I love the book of James, and that's where it says, without faith, without works, faith is dead. Faith is dead without works. So you have to work your faith. You show your work. You show your faith through your work. Frederick Douglass said, I prayed for God to free me for 20 years, and he didn't answer my prayers until I started to use my legs. Until he ran from his captors, did God actually free him from slavery? And then the last quote was, yes, faith gives you the power to move mountains, but don't be surprised when God hands you a shovel, right? Those are some things that keep me working. Like while I'm praying to God to work things out, I better be, after I get done, get off my face and my knees, then I better be getting to work, right? And I better be doing everything I can in my power. The last quote I'll say, you know, kind of ruffle some feathers the wrong way, but it says that work as if God doesn't exist. God only exists. Pray as if God is in all power, but work as if all you're in power, you're in control, right? Like, so those are some powerful things that I like to keep in mind. I like to tell my clients is because, you know, we can hope and pray, and if things work out, things are for you, but it's also a matter of God giving you the desires of your heart. And you know, the desires of your heart are things you're really going to work really, really hard to achieve and get. So.
Yeah. I shared TD Jakes' quote, his interview with Stephen Furtick this month. And basically, he said, TD Jakes was like, I'm tired of praying about rent. I'm tired of praying about car notes. I'm tired of praying about, you know, rent for money. I mean, money for rent. Like, we need, you do that. That's what you do. And what he was basically saying is like, we're asking God for a barely get by blessing. Can I just get this? Can I get this $3 an hour raise?
Right.
When God doesn't do that. We need to ask God, can we become the type of person that we don't have to worry about our rent? Can we become the type of person where we don't have to worry about praying for our car note? Lord, give me the resources for I can have the type of income, or give me the skills to manage my money better so I don't have to be worried about these things. So I think it's the same way in our job search. Like, make me a better interviewer. Like, point out my weaknesses, point out my communication,
right,
like that.
Yeah.
Tell me where I need to work. Our blessing is not necessarily for an outward blessing, but like an internal transformation. Like, that's what we need to ask for sometimes. And I mean, sometimes as we're looking for jobs, I remember I had this one employee, he just felt that coworker, he felt that like he was really, really smart and knowledgeable, that it didn't matter that his personality sucked. Like, his personality was terrible. He kept losing jobs and not realizing because his personality was terrible. But he just thought it was a problem with everybody else because he was so smart. But the reality is he needed to look in himself and see what like the issue was. And sometimes we need to have those hard conversations with God as well.
Absolutely. And I like to think that, you know, that when you look internally, when you think like, what can I do better to improve this situation, you're going to uncover a lot of things about yourself, right? As opposed to thinking about things you can't control. You can't control what other people might think or do or say, but you can control how prepared you are when you come to the table and try to get, you know, and try to improve yourself. And the last thing I say is like, pray for wisdom, right? Pray for wisdom, and as opposed to a dollar amount or a raise, and that wisdom is going to give you that $3 raise or $30,000 or house or car that you want, right? And I think that's, you know, that's my prayer. Give me more wisdom so I can make the money that I need to make to support my family or to reach my goals, right? So yeah.
Amen. Solomon prayed for wisdom. David prayed for wisdom, and God blessed them with wealth and family or whatever they had.
Exactly.
But they prayed for wisdom. They sought out God instead of seeking out these resources. So I want to go back to the questions.
Sure.
And we're going to close in a couple minutes. But how do you spin weaknesses to not sound like turnoffs?
Good question. This is the best advice. This is worth the hour that you've been chilling with us, honestly. No, but whenever you answer a question that's a challenging question, like tell me about a weakness, or tell me a time you failed, or even if you've been fired, if you've been to jail, if you had, you know, been reprimanded, whatever it might have been, any challenging or negative question, I want you to spend 25% of the response on what happened and 75% of the response on what you learned from it / what you did or how you would respond if you were faced with the situation again. So Whenever you talk about a weakness, always talk about some measures that you've taken to improve that weakness recently. So one thing I used to say in my interviews is, you know, what's your greatest weakness? I might say something. I always try to make it a joke so I can loosen them up. But I always say something like, I'm not the most organized. If you look at my desk, you'll see that, you know, you might not be able to find anything. I know exactly where things are. And I always like to say, if you got a clean desk, you're not doing any work anyway. And then we'll hopefully have a little laugh, right? But uh, I say, you know, and recently I've taken some things some measures to improve my organization, right? I mean, if it wasn't for reminders, I think technology really helps. Google Calendar. I have a personal Kanban in my office that, you know, lists things what I have to do, what I'm currently doing in progress, and what I have done. So I've taken steps to improve my organization, and that's made me a little bit more efficient. However, I want to remind you that me or my lack of organization has never affected or impeded with my ability to be productive. So whatever weakness you might say, try to make it a soft kind of weakness that, yeah, I know people that might be messy and their desk might be messed up, but they're geniuses, right? So whatever it might be, make sure you're just spending a little bit of time on what it is and more time on what you learn from it, how you bounce back, what you're doing currently to improve that area of weakness.
Okay, dope. Last question. Any last questions? Because I don't have a question.
Okay. All right. Hopefully that means I get a good job then.
Okay.
Let me say one more thing though. So we talked about job search strategy, and we didn't really talk a whole lot about it, but the number one way to get a job is employee referrals. The second best way is LinkedIn, and we talked about that. The third best way to get a job nowadays is actually attending events. About Christians, we're talking to Christians and the believers. I like to say you need to showcase yourselves and your personality and let your light shine at those events, right? Like, you might not be the best interviewer, your resume might look like crap, your LinkedIn might look like your kindergarten did it, but if you can let your light shine in an interview or in a networking opportunity, whether it's a happy hour, even if you don't drink, go, because if other people drinking, you might be able to convince them to interview you, right? They might be feeling good. Go to a volunteer event, go to a community service event, go to a gala or some kind of award show. Get to meet these people so they can interact with you and almost interview you. You're forcing your hand at interviewing before they invite you. And they might be like, you know what? There's something about that Maisha. There's something about that Adam or Alan or, you know, whoever. And they might say, and when you follow up with them, because the key to networking and attending events is following up, connect with them on LinkedIn, and hopefully get an employee interview, employee referral. But the key is to follow up after that event to say, hey, you know, it was great talking to you. I wanted to follow up on our conversation. Are you open for coffee or lunch? Now you're building a relationship with that person. So you can either get references or an employee referral or a recommendation, or they can say, hey, I really like you. What are you trying to do? What do you want to do? I have an opportunity, or I know a friend that I'd like to introduce you to. So the goal at those events is really to let your light shine and connect with people so you can eventually connect with them on LinkedIn and eventually, hopefully, use their network to strengthen your network and to hopefully give you an employer referral for somewhere where you want to work, right? Or, you know, a volunteer with. So the last thing I like to say is make sure you're organizing your job search, where you're, of course, applying to jobs online, networking through LinkedIn, attending events, and really reaching out to your personal network.
Can you hear me now?
Good. Yeah, that's
okay.
Good.
So we have a question
Sure.
that I want you to touch quickly. And then, so someone asked, how do you make your cover letter stand out?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I like to say your cover letter is your first interview. If you think of your cover letter as your first interview, it's going to be a lot different. You're going to write it a lot differently. So a lot of times a cover letter is very short and succinct, and it might have bullet points. It might just reiterate what's on your resume, or it might be very generic. And that's very telling of the kind of employee you might be. If you really take your time to write this cover letter with care and really make it match the keywords and phrases found in the job description, found on the company website, and make it very personable, and make sure that it reflects maybe, you know, how you're qualified for the job, and make sure it includes why you're applying to the job. That's one thing that's missing from most cover letters, is a paragraph or a short blurb of why you're applying. So Maisha, the one we worked on, we talked about why you're applying. And I think that says a lot more about what you can do. We know what you can do based on your resume. We know you're qualified, but when we interview you, we want to know 3 things. Can you do the job? Will you like the job? And will we like you? So by answering why you're applying to the job, you're answering one of those questions in, will you like the job? If you're applying to the job because it aligns with your long-term career goals, if you're applying to the job because you're looking for an organization that reflects your personal values, this makes sense. This means that you're probably going to be here for a little while. It means that you're probably going to like this environment. And we're probably going to like you because we see that through your cover letter, you took your time and effort and energy and poured everything you had into this cover letter to make it right, to make it where you impress us and showcase your written communication skills and also your persuasion skills. So understand your cover letter is a 500-word interview. If you have 500 words to convince an employee to hire you or to interview you, what would you say? That's what your cover letter should really allude to or get at.
Awesome. One more question, then closing words.
All right, that's good. That's all good. I got all night.
Okay. Oh no, I'm going to sleep. No, I'm also thinking about moving to another city for a better job. What are some tips to assist me with the transition?
Good question. So first, you want to think about visiting that city and actually attending events in that city. If it's a city that's nearby, driving distance, you should probably drive to that city on a monthly basis to attend events. Maybe there's a conference there. You want to build your network in that location and get introduced to other professionals in that location, because it's very difficult to get a job in a city that you don't live in because you might not be familiar with the area, the people, the culture, the style. You might be viewed as an outsider. You might say something that people might not understand, like some lingo or something like that you might use in the area where you're from. And you also want to make sure employers know that you're accessible, that I don't have to necessarily pay for relocation expenses or to fly you out for an interview. If you could say to an employer, hey, I'm going to be here next month already, I would love to find some time to have coffee or talk about this position. I would love to do that. You won't have to pay for any expenses. Then, let's do that. In a cover letter, you want to talk about your frequent, travel to that place or that location, and also your desire to move there and not necessarily need relocation expenses. That's a big draw for companies. And also your familiarity with the area and your connections already in place. That should be, alluded to, and that can be demonstrated through your LinkedIn connections as well.
Okay, awesome. So any final words, and where can we contact you? What services do you offer, and how can we contact you?
So services, pretty much everything I talked about today. I write resumes, I write cover letters, I write LinkedIn profiles and bios. I help you design and develop effective job search strategies. I help you prepare for interviews. I help you conduct yourself and answer questions during the interview, and I also help you follow up properly after the interview. And then the icing on the cake is a job offer or salary negotiation. Really, the whole goal is to you talk about money and praying for a better job. The whole goal is to get the best bang for your buck. So I like to help people negotiate their salaries. Usually if the first offer that you get is usually not the company's best offer. So there's a very, a proper way to negotiate your salary without, taking anybody off. Now, those are my individual services. I offer those services a la carte, and I also offer them in a coaching package. The people that secure my coaching package are 90% likely to get the job that they're applying to. I also offer those services in group settings. So I do presentations and workshops, seminars, and things like that. If you're in the Detroit area, I'm actually scheduling one for Wednesday, the 29th in downtown Detroit. So I have more information about that. Website, you can find me at higherlevelcoaching.com, and hire is spelled H-I-R-E, like you're getting hired for a job, higherlevelcoaching.com. And all of my Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, they are all under that same name, Higher Level Coaching.
I actually have one more question I forgot.
Sure. No, that's all right.
Applying for jobs sometimes and you're not getting the feedback you want or the response you want can be really, really taxing on your mental and your mentality and your attitude. What tips do you have for keeping your mental sanity, your spirits up, and like keeping, you know, just a good mindset as you're.
Good question. So, so first is analyzing what you might be doing wrong. If you're applying to job after job after job for months on end and not getting any callbacks, then your resume sucks. And no matter how, you know, upset you get, no matter how much you pray, you still might not get a call back. So first is really analyzing what you could be doing wrong. Now, and seek help, seek outside help. Really, look at some of the things that I have. You can hire me, right? But I'm not, you know, I have a lot of free services as well. So thinking about what you can do better, but also, I mean, taking a break from it all, right? If you're applying to a job a day, which I think is a good number to shoot for, understanding that possibly do everything you can do today and leave tomorrow's work for tomorrow. Take a break on the weekends. Take a day break. Take a breather after you've been looking at jobs for a couple of hours straight. I like to work for 53 minutes straight and take a break for 7. If I'm working for hours on end, that's a good rhythm for me. Now for you, you might take a little break to watch one of your favorite shows on Netflix, but keeping your sanity in an insane place is very important. So taking a breather, really learning how to take a break, but then, you know, recharge your battery, so to speak, is really important when you're applying a job, because it could be taxing, especially when you're getting rejected. But if you're getting rejected, understand that as long as I keep at it, as long as I try to get better every day, have a short memory, because you can't think about what happened in the past. You can't control it. Only thing you can control is what you do moving forward. And I think that's really the most important piece in all of this, is understanding that you're going to get better. All you need is one person to say yes. It's just a matter of meeting that right person and getting that right opportunity for them to say yes. But if you're applying to jobs on in, understanding that I need to get better every day, and there's something that I'm missing that I could be, you know, that I could really maximize my job search.
Okay, so thank you. That was so amazing. James, I'm gonna put a cover photo on this video.
Awesome.
And then I'm gonna put, you know, all your links and contacts at the bottom so you can share widely. And we'll share this with the group. And I need everyone to I can't put links in the chat, but like I'll let everybody know more about Young Professionals for Christ. And if you are interested, I would be interested in securing you for a group coaching class.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to.
So we'll talk about pricing and things like that, and I'll talk with the group and we'll get that together, because I really want to get people into new positions for the new year.
Yeah, listen, like that's really, I like to say, better career, better life.
Right.
Like your life will be a lot better if you can actually go to work and be happy. And that's, to me, that's why it's called higher level coaching.
Right. Exactly. Like you can't, and for me, like I'm trying to get people to serve the kingdom or be in the kingdom. You can't serve the kingdom or be all you need to be for Christ if you can't even take care of your household. Like if you're not feeding yourself, taking care of yourself, there's nothing you can give back to anyone else. So
right.
You need to secure the bag first before you do anything.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
So thank you. Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm talking to your brother soon too, so appreciate it.
Gotcha. He needs some help. Good. Like whatever the whole coaching package, that's what he needs. Because yeah.
Good. Sounds good to me. That's music to my ears.
Okay. All right.
All right, Maisha.
All right. Bye.
Well, thank you. Bye.